The Pemmican War was a conflict that took place in Canada in the early 19th century between the Hudson's Bay Company and the Northwest Company over the trade of pemmican, a high-energy food made from dried meat and fat. The war had far-reaching consequences for the fur trade in Canada and the relationship between Indigenous peoples and European settlers. Background: in the early 1800s, the HBC and the NWC were both involved in the fur trade in Canada. The HBC, based in the Hudson Bay region, was primarily involved in the trade of beaver pelts, while the NWC, headquartered in Montreal, focused on the trade of other furs, including buffalo robes. Pemmican, a nutritious and long-lasting food made from dried buffalo meat and fat, was a vital resource for traders and explorers who traveled long distances in Canada's harsh climate. The NWC had a virtual monopoly on the trade of pemmican, which gave them a significant advantage over the HBC. The conflict. In 1814, the HBC decided to break the NWC's monopoly on the pemmican trade by producing its own pemmican. The HBC began purchasing buffalo meat from indigenous hunters and processing it into pemmican. The NWC saw this move as a threat to its business and responded by attempting to buy up all the available pemmican in the region, thus driving up the price and preventing the HBC from obtaining any. The HBC, in turn, responded by sending armed parties to seize pemmican from the NWC. The conflict escalated, and in 1816, the NWC declared war on the HBC. The two companies engaged in skirmishes and battles throughout the region, with Indigenous peoples sometimes taking sides. Aftermath. The Pemmican War ended in 1821 when the British government forced the HBC and the NWC to merge. The new company, the Hudson's Bay Company, had a monopoly on the fur trade in Canada and had a significant impact on the region's history and development. The war had a devastating impact on Indigenous peoples as it disrupted traditional trade networks and caused food shortages. Many Indigenous peoples were forced to rely on the fur trade for their livelihood, which made them vulnerable to exploitation by European traders. Conclusion: the Pemmican War was a conflict between the HBC and the NWC over the trade of pemmican, a vital food source in Canada's fur trade. The war had far-reaching consequences for the Indigenous peoples of the region and contributed to the development of Canada's fur trade industry. The conflict serves as a reminder of the impact of European colonialism on Indigenous peoples and their traditional ways of life.